Hi, this is Fresh Oil Releases, Christine speaking, and I've called this message Understanding the Times and Knowing What to Do. Sometimes a watchman notices what's coming over the horizon by scanning the different objects that he sees moving towards him. And I just want to discuss some things that I have been taking note of in the past week and things that have occurred on the world stage. We have just celebrated the early barley ripeness calendar Yom Kippur on the 7th of September. Now I have been watching and praying concerning the crash of the world financial system and the many things that are going to unfold as judgments begin to be unleashed in the earth. And as part of that watching, I listened to two videos on hagmanreport.com. That's HAGMANN report.com. There were two messages on the 25th of August 2022, which is exactly a month before the Orthodox Rosh Hashanah for 5783. And both of those messages warned that it is to be noticed that all major financial crashes as far back as 1929 have taken place on the high holy days of the Jewish calendar and also in close proximity to solar and lunar eclipses. Now there is a partial solar eclipse on the 25th of September this year in the daytime before the Orthodox Rosh Hashanah 5783 begins at 6 p.m. And it will affect the regions of Europe, the United Kingdom, the Middle East, and over the area of Ukraine and the surrounding territories, and a bit of North Africa. Now, solar eclipses are always a warning to the nations of the world of coming disaster. Lunar eclipses, on the other hand, speak of trouble coming for Israel. Now, both the financial crash of 2001 and of 2008 took place, interestingly enough, on the 29th of Elul of that particular Jewish year. Now, that's no coincidence. At the end of every 7 years in Israel, debts were cancelled on the last day of that year, which is the 29th of Elul. And that cancellation is called the Shemitah, which means the deliverance. The Orthodox Jewish calendar date of Elul the 29th this year takes place on September the 25th, that very day when the partial solar eclipse takes place. And 5782 was a Shemitah year. It is the 7th year in a cycle of 7 weeks of year. In other words, it's the 49th year. So 5783 is not only the 50th year of this cycle and the Jubilee year, but it is considered by some rabbis to be the 70th Jubilee. How interesting that the Queen had her 70th Jubilee celebration, celebrating her 70 years of rule not long before she died. Now, I have heard several reports from different quarters warning of the intention to cause a major financial crash sometime in the latter half of September or early October, in order to begin to institute the great financial reset and introduce the new digital currency. As I mentioned, Rosh Hashanah of the Orthodox calendar begins at 6 p.m. on the evening of the 25th of September, and Yom Kippur of the Orthodox 5783 year is the 5th of October. That is the day that the Jubilee trumpet would be blown in a Jubilee year. One expert warned that once the euro crashes, it will be 2 weeks until the US dollar crashes. In line with those educated warnings, it's significant that the Pope has ordered all finance connected to the Catholic Church branches to be moved to the Vatican Bank by September the 30th, 2022. It sounds like he knows that something is coming. So saints, please pray for wisdom and divine counsel concerning your own finances. If you have investments, remember that during financial upheavals, banks often go offline or limit customer transactions, and afterwards the price of commodities go through the roof. So use these remaining days of September very wisely in regard to preparation under the Holy Spirit's guidance. Make sure that your wallets belong to God and that you use their contents under His direction alone. If your vehicles need servicing or parts replaced and you can afford it, do it now. If you are in a part of the world which is heading into autumn and winter, get wood, supplies, and whatever other products you will need to keep warm. You do not only need supplies for 1 or 2 weeks. Remember this. Prepare for a significant storm, one so great that there's absolutely no chance of you slipping out the front door to buy bread and milk, because the sheer force of the stormy wind will not let you open the door even 1 inch. The money you have in your hand in these days will have more purchasing power than it will have in 6 weeks' time. So be wise like the ant and gather your supplies for this dark winter as He leads, while you still have an opportunity to do so. Don't waste any time in these days. Use the 24 hours of every day wisely. If the storm should be delayed because of God's mercy, the supplies you have on hand will still be of use to you. So you lose absolutely nothing by preparing. The death of the Queen of England on the 8th of September was a significant time marker. 3 days later is the 21st anniversary of 9/11. That is 7 plus 7 plus 7. And on the 9th day of the 9th month, last Friday, King Charles III was announced as her successor. The 9th of the 9th. 9 plus 9 is 18. But 18 is also 6 plus 6 plus 6. And there you have a nod to the incoming Antichrist era. Now, on the day of the Queen's death, I had an interesting vision. I saw a tiddlywink lying on the edge of a wooden table, and then a hand holding another tiddlywink launched the stationary one lying on the table into the air, and it somersaulted down, 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 and struck a house of cards that was built below it. This caused the house of cards to fall in on itself, and afterwards all the cards lay in a flat pile on the floor. I had the distinct knowing that this house crashing down represented the financial system and the markets currently existing in this world. So the markets are going to come crashing down and fall in upon themselves. One card falling down is going to dislodge another card below it and set in a whole chain of events that end up with the markets crashing right down to ground level. I also sensed that the first tiddlywink lying on the table was connected to the death of the Queen of England. Tiddlywinks is an idle and trivial game, and the scene I witnessed suggests that a hand will set in motion some form of movement that seems unimportant when you view it, but it will have devastating consequences to the financial systems of this world. I found it very interesting that the early Bali calendar Yom Kippur took place the day before the Queen died. It's almost as if we were tucked right into the bridal chamber just in time. I had mentioned that I felt that the significance of these early celebrations were in order to prepare and equip a forerunner company who would then be found fully ready at the appointed time. Now, knowing that the Illuminati pay attention to the Orthodox Jewish calendar, and that the Queen and Prince Charles have claimed to be direct descendants of King David, I strongly sense that the Orthodox fall feasts this year are going to be the witness to a triggering of a succession of destructive events. Just before the Queen's death was announced, a double rainbow appeared over Buckingham Palace. Some saw it as a sign of God's evident favour and blessing on the life of this Queen, but I would like to point out that the rainbow is connected to Noah's flood. The judgment of earth by water occurred then. Now, what does the Bible say concerning that event? In Matthew 24:37, Jesus said, "As were the days of Noah, so shall be the coming of the Son of Man. For just as in those days before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and being given in marriage, until the very day when Noah went into the ark, and they did not know or understand until the flood came and swept them all away, so will be the coming of the Son of Man." In my opinion, that double rainbow is an indication that a very strong period of judgment is about to be unleashed, and yet the people will just carry on about their daily lives, unaware and having no understanding of the times. Noah was a preacher of righteousness who warned the population over and over of coming judgment, but they took no notice. Then one day God shut the ark door and the rain began to fall. In the same way, there have been years of warning by faithful servants of God of the need to get right with Him. And soon those warnings will cease and the prophesied judgments will begin to roll out. And I get the sense they will be like a row of neatly set up dominoes falling one after the other. You will not have time to fully comprehend the falling of one domino before the next one plunges down. And only those prepared will be unshaken as this occurs. You know, as I watch what's unfolding in Ukraine and in Europe as the sanctions on Russia continue to be held firmly in place and in fact increased in some cases, and the nations of Europe are going through a power crisis of their own leaders making, because they refuse to pay for gas in rubles, and therefore their countries are going through power crisis. Factories are closing down, steel factories are closing down, many businesses are having to shut their doors, and there are restrictions being put in place. For instance, in Switzerland, they've brought new laws in that people are not to heat their houses over 19 degrees, even with wood fires. They can be put in prison for doing such things. And so the nation of Europe is folding in upon itself because of this power crisis and gas shortage, and it's causing a domino effect. One can see it happening. And you know, when there is no power, it affects one thing after another. You can't get petrol out of the pumps if there's no power to run the pump. You can't warm houses, obviously. What about if the electricity goes down? The sewerage systems don't work, water doesn't get purified, what comes out of the taps is utterly filthy and carries disease. We see that in a couple of cities in America, big cities, where their water purification systems have been damaged by flooding, and the people are being told to boil water for a couple of minutes in order to make it safe to drink. But when you look at that water, it's black. When it comes out of the tap, And I wouldn't drink that water even after it had been boiled. And what if that situation continues for a significant amount of time and you're unable to access clean water? It's a dire situation. So we have to prepare for these things. We have to understand that when power is removed, it has a significant impact on our modern lives. Obviously, when power is removed, refrigeration systems don't work. And therefore, we can't store food by freezing it. So then what happens? We have to act with wisdom. We have to understand that the things that have been warned of for many years are now barreling towards us. You know, I have been writing of the need for preparing as a bride for the bridegroom's coming since 2008. That is 14 years of warnings, 2 cycles of 7 years. And I am sensing that just like Noah, the time of speaking out in warning is rapidly drawing to a close. And when it is done, the ark door closes, or the bridal chamber door closes, and the people will think, thank goodness those tiresome Christians have stopped going on and on. They will plunge back into their sinful, self-centered lives and will not see the judgment barreling towards them until it hits. But for those of us who are watching and looking for the coming of the Lord, these things which are unfolding before our eyes do not take us unawares. This is the time when we position ourselves consciously, daily, fully under the wing of the Almighty. He is our shelter. He is our strong tower. He is our refuge, our deliverer, and our shield. That is why I suggest breaking bread daily, because in that action you are actively placing yourself under the wing of His marriage covenant with us. The blood and the broken body of Jesus paid the bridal price for us to be brought under the marriage covenant. You know, on Friday, the 9th of September, I was driving around and a car passed me with a number plate which read Bulwark. And I was amazed by that. It was such a confirmation to me of what I've been thinking of, hiding ourselves in the Lord. A bulwark is a fortress, a strongly guarded and safe place, and it is stocked with provision. God is our bulwark during the storm that is about to be unleashed. So, precious saints, please prepare prayerfully for this time. God is our strength and our shield. You can't stand in your own strength. Humanly speaking, one's not able to survive what is going to be unfolding in the weeks and months ahead. You know, the New World Order's motto is out of chaos, order. But they create the chaos in order to make people so desperate that they open their arms to their form of order that they want to institute. So we have to be wise, we have to be alert, and we have to be aware of what is going on. You can't put your head in the sand and say, oh, He's coming to take us out of here. We're not going to go through any of this. It's the people who get saved during the tribulation that are spoken of in Revelation. No, it's not. Jesus very clearly said, after the tribulation of those days, He will send His angels and gather His elect from the four corners of the earth. The pre-trib rapture doctrine is a doctrine of demons because it keeps the church completely and utterly unprepared for what comes upon the earth. Jesus issued warnings in His days to His disciples. And those warnings are still relevant for us today. Even the book of Enoch, the first paragraph of the book of Enoch, is addressed to those believers who are alive during the tribulation of the end time. So, precious saints, with what has been unfolding in this past week, with the death of the Queen, the instituting of King Charles III, on these pivotal dates all around 9/11 anniversary, be fully aware that we've just passed another marker of the rollout of the New World Order system, and all the big players are being put in place, in places of power. But we, like the ant, are going to prepare before the winter hits. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May He guide you and lead you, speak to you in your dreams, guide you as you seek His word, His face, His presence, and may you be strengthened with might out of the rich treasury of His glory to exercise endurance and patience with joy. Hallelujah.